Welcome to the Ron Greenwald Show. We bring you stories, insights, and expertise from leading professionals on the life-changing journey that is estate planning. This podcast is for everyone. We will guide you through our team approach to the AGE, the Aging Safari, and crafting the legacy you wish to leave to your children and grandchildren. We will empower you with the choices to enhance your life now and ensure that your family is able to come together for generations to come. Together, we will make a positive difference. Let's get started. Welcome to the Ron Greenwald Show. This podcast, I know a lot of people listen to podcasts while they're jogging or working out in the gym or preparing dinner. So I encourage you to continue to listen to this podcast while you're doing that. But then I want you to then call the family at the dinner table and listen to it out loud amongst family members, because we have a most special guest. And I want to read the bio for Marguerite Lorenz. It is a true, and I don't really need to even read this, but I want to make sure I get it correct. Beyond a pleasure to introduce who is a friend and a top-tier professional, entrepreneur, author, public speaker, trailblazer, and advocate, Marguerite Lorenz. Our journey together began, we were just talking about that 14, 15 years ago. Our journey together began upward of 15 years ago at a 7 a.m. networking event for the San Diego North County Bar Association.
I remember.
In an Irish pub in Vista. Yeah. I was a rookie back then in the space that I am now in terms of residential real estate, and I was so grateful for you, Marguerite, and gracious and openness in helping me navigate the event. And from that moment, we discovered our shared passion for being candid and honest with our clients, our friends, and our colleagues. And it's just changed, certainly has changed my life and trajectory of my life. Certainly did not anticipate doing podcasts, and certainly didn't anticipate being an advocate for helping older adults and really the world understand estate planning. So who is Marguerite Lorenz? She is a founder of Lorenz Private Trustees. For those that who know the marvelous Jane Lorenz, who we lost in 2017, who started the firm in 1975.
Yeah.
Marguerite joined Jane in 2003. Marguerite has served over 200 families as trustee and executor. And put that in context, some people can't even handle one. Managing complex estates with the utmost care and professionalism. With offices, Lorenz Private Trustees has offices throughout Southern California and Portsmouth, New Hampshire. She is widely respected as a master certified independent trustee and a California licensed professional fiduciary. She is an author. Her book, Ethics for Trustees 2.0, offers invaluable insights for both professional and family trustees. She's literally educated thousands, and I have been thrilled to be part of those presentations on the topics of estate planning and aging well. As her fiduciary firm celebrates 50 years in business, Marguerite also plans to launch her new podcast, Plan for This, in 2025, which will focus on real people, real estates, and real solutions. Marguerite has serves as vice chair of the Independent Trustee Alliance, where her leadership continues to shape the fiduciary profession. It's been an honor working with Marguerite, and I'm continually inspired by her dedication and impact. Please join me in welcoming Marguerite Lorenz. Welcome to this podcast.
Oh, thank you, Ron. Thank you for all the sweet and kind things that you've said. I really appreciate it.
Well, I really didn't need that, but I wanted to get it in a half an hour's time. So,
you know, one of the things that makes you so special to me is that I always feel heard and seen by you.
Well, thank you.
Your listening is just really healing, and I just appreciate it.
Thank you. So, Marguerite, I want to talk about you, and Malcolm Gladwell has the book Outliers, and he tells the backstory of the back journey of how people got to where they are today. Obviously, you didn't wake up one morning and go, I want to be a California licensed professional fiduciary, and I want to handle crazy situations.
Yeah.
And I want to then be an advocate, a trailblazer, and a spokesperson to telling people the facts and the what ifs. So give us a little bit of background into Marguerite Lorenz and how we got to really what I have said is the most established, successful trustee business operation in the country.
Wow. Well, I will share with you that I was thinking about my childhood as you were speaking. And when I was 6 years old, I met Jane Lorenz for the first time. And Jane was unique because she looked me in the eye and she asked me how I was. And unlike any other adult in my life at that time, including my dear old dad, she asked and she expected me to answer. I felt really loved by her. And so that was really special. It's very special to have a stepmom, but she was only my stepmom for about 6 years. And then she moved on. And my father was very special and really encouraged me. He was a systems analyst. He was an aircraft mechanic with the Navy. And so I got a lot of logic and systems and planning from him. But what I got from Jane was permission to be myself. And when I was 12, my dad attempted to wrest custody of me from my mother. And he lost. And that same year, I got to go on a field trip with the other kids in my class. And we saw this Kuan Yin exhibit at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. I'll never forget it. Kuan Yin is the Buddhist deity. And she represents compassion. And she's also the deity you ask for boys. If you want boys in your life, that's who you ask. And so I put in an order for 2 of them. And in my life planning as a 12-year-old, I had a business. And you could say, well, you're just a babysitter. Oh, no. If I couldn't make that babysitting engagement, I called a friend and had her do it, and I would get 10% of her take. So I had a business when I was 12.
Know. Okay, that's a new insight. You were running a little deal going back at 12, huh?
Sure.
The preteen babysitting gig.
Right. No Saturday night at home. You know, you as a parent, you could get out because you had somebody you could rely on.
To put in context, 50 cents an hour, $1 an hour?
Oh gosh, I think I was charging a lot. I think I was charging $2 an hour at the time, and I was also adding money depending on how many children you had. So that was my babysitting business. But keep moving forward, right? And Jane, again, was very encouraging. And I remember talking to her about this job opportunity I got. So as I grew up, I became an administrator. Some people might call it a secretary. Some people might call it an administrative assistant. At some point, I was the internal audit administrative support.
There's a mouthful.
Yeah, there you go. And had to answer the phone that way every time. So I worked for Sun America Financial. And then I went to work for a student tuition financing company. It was family run. There were only 50 employees altogether. There was a collections department. There was a sales department. So one brother ran collections, one brother ran sales. Another person had been with the company for 30 years, basically ran the operations. And so I got a job there and started learning about how that all worked. And I was fascinated by it. And then somebody offered me national director of marketing for a software company that would essentially replace this manually managed student tuition financing company. I had a moral dilemma. So I called Mom.
Mom being Jane.
Jane is my mom. And so I laid it out for her. And I said, if I go with this company, I'm kind of being disloyal to this company I've worked for 7 years. What do I do? But I could own my own home finally. I could raise my boys. I was a single mom. You know, what do I do? And she said, oh, you're willing to leave Los Angeles. Come work with me. Come be my partner.
So Jane is in San Diego County at the time.
Yes. So a little town called Fallbrook. And she and her husband had this beautiful acreage in Fallbrook with fruit trees and so on. And my boys and I moved to a trailer on her property. And we lived there for 2.5 years in an 8-foot by 23-foot trailer. And God, I hit my head so many times in that little kitchen. But I got a chance to shadow her. I got a chance to follow her. I got a chance to help
and tell the listening audience, what is Jane doing at that time?
Oh, well, I guess that's an important detail, isn't it? So Jane was a CPA, and she was working also as a trustee. And so when someone becomes trustee, there's 100% liability. And she was serving as trustee, as executor, agent under power of attorney for finance, and even as agent for healthcare. And if you don't know what those things are and you don't know how those work, my book is called Ethics for Trustees 2.0. Jane and I actually wrote the first version of that back in May of 2011. And that was just Ethics for Trustees. And I'm recommending 2.0 because I had the chance to update it. You know, the laws keep changing around the things we're talking about. And so this is an updated version. And Jane was a real pioneer in terms of working as a fiduciary. And fiduciary is the word that covers all these roles that I just said.
Again, I'm just thinking context in other parts of the country, guardian, what other words that would people recognize?
So when you're looking at conservatorship or guardianship, that's a court supervised experience. What I'm talking about are private trustees. We're very fortunate in California that we actually have licensing for this profession. Jane was on the judicial committee that devised the rules under which we operate. She was on the Estate Planning Law and Advisory Commission, which designed the tests for specialist attorneys that are in the estate planning arena. So when I joined Jane, it freed her up because now she had a partner. Now she had someone else who was willing to serve as trustee. And I have to tell you about the very first meeting I had with a prospective client. So I was living in the San Fernando Valley at the time. Jane and I were packing up my apartment to move to Fallbrook. And she knew that there was going to be a possible meeting in Northridge, so she brought some nice clothes with her. And then we got the call, and we changed out of our grubbies and got dressed, and we went to Northridge. And I met a man who was a quadriplegic, meaning he couldn't use his arms or legs. And the attorney was so sure that Jane would be the right fit as the trustee that he had all the documents already drafted. And when we met the client for the first time, that was the moment that the client was actually signing Jane on as trustee. And guess what? My name was behind hers in the document. I was shocked. And that meant if Jane couldn't do the job at some point or she was unwilling to continue, it would be me.
Was that an aha moment that you're going, wow, this is real?
Yes, it was very real. In fact, he had to put a pen in his mouth to sign the documents.
Wow.
And he had witnesses who knew who he was and his ID and so on, because that was the best he could do to sign his documents with a pen in his mouth.
Wow.
Yeah. So I became the one who went to visit him on a regular basis. And it was part of my training. And he knew that I was in training. And so I would bring him his accounting once a year. And he would always ask how my beautiful mom was doing. And he was really special as my first client, as someone who had to learn how to be patient. If you can't move your own arms and legs, you are stuck learning how to be patient for the rest of your life.
That's an incredible story.
Yeah.
How long did he live afterwards? Or
About 5 years, which for someone in his circumstance, that's a long time. And he had 2 nurses who were utterly dedicated to him. So I got to know how that worked. And I started having dreams where I was the one in the bed and he was visiting me. And that's also when it became real. You know, being a fiduciary isn't just managing the tax, legal, financial, and medical decisions for another person. It may be that you are the one who's making it possible for someone to live as well as they possibly can for as long as they can. And it's such a great job from that perspective. And it's challenging. There's plenty of challenges in this work.
so when was the point in time in your journey that you and Jane are partners that you go, this is something way beyond just Jane and Marguerite? I really see this as an entity that needs to grow, and I need to be out there telling people of what we do and the importance of what we do. When is that transition? I'm going to expand beyond Fallbrook and Jane and Marguerite.
Well, I think where that started for me was my kids were 8 and 9 years old, and we moved to this place. And Jane says, well, have you thought about an estate plan for you? What? Well, no, I hadn't ever. I was in my late 30s. I have these 2 little boys, but if something happened to me, it would be tragic for them. So I found an attorney who was willing to accept my paltry little monthly payments, and I got my estate plan done. I cried a lot about all the milestones I would miss, about the weddings I would miss, about the first homes or the business or whatever. So I built my trust to kind of replace myself in that first round. And I also bought term life insurance because I had nothing, but I was living in a trailer on my mom's property, right? So that really made me realize that there were a lot of people who had obligations and responsibilities but had no idea about the power of estate planning. That they have no idea that if you put certain things in writing and you grant authority to another person, that you don't have to worry so much. In fact, I replaced worrying with planning. And I've always been a planner. Remember my 12-year-old, right? So this really fit for me. Well, then I got the opportunity to put together a program, and I called it Estate Planning 101. And we had a lot of students, but the very first class, I had 8 students. By the end of that 8-week course, because I did 1 class a week for 8 weeks, I had 23 students because they started telling their friends. Then I changed the format. And by the time I met you and we got together and working on it, we were meeting Tuesday, Thursday, and we would do 2 classes each of those days because people needed time to absorb this. Estate planning is a big project to take on. But here's the thing. Once I did my estate plan, I felt like that was the foundation for my financial security. It became the foundation for all of my dreams. The shares in my company that I shared with Jane, those shares are held in the name of my trust. My kids are going to be looked after, even if I can't be the one looking after them. And then they grew. My little boys now are 29 and 30 years old. But I just want you to know that my estate plan changed as my business has changed, as my partnerships. When Clay, Jane's son, joined our practice, that's really when I felt free. Now I can really talk to more people. I can get more work. We have all these capable people to do it.
And tell the listening audience, Lorenz Private Trustee today is how many people doing great work?
So I'm one.
This is something to hear, people. Listen to this.
So I'm very proud to say that, and by the way, if you want to look us up, we're at mytrustee.net, mytruste.net, mytrustee.net. I'm really proud to say I'm one of 5 partners. And I'm not only in business with my stepbrother, but also his brother-in-law, his best friend, another colleague that came to find us, right? So that we are 5 partners that really believe in the same things. Our values are the same, but our styles are different. And our approach to problem solving is a bit different. And our strength is in our differences. We meet with each other every week. And beyond us 5, we have another 15 people that are full-time working for us. I'm sorry, one of them is part-time. But the point is that we've grown. We have really good internal controls. We have a director of operations who makes sure that everything gets done. You know, Jane, God bless her, she died in 2017. And she was really our operations person. My brother Clay was really our financial person, and I was the marketing person. And every business needs those 3 things, right? Operations, finance, and marketing. And that's kind of how we dealt with it. But without her, it was really, we had this huge gap. And I want you to know that planning really makes a difference. Because Jane had such a good estate plan and had let us know what was in her mind and how it was going to work, when she got really sick, she felt confident about resigning from certain cases. Clay and I took most of her cases, half each. And Noah, Clay's brother-in-law and my partner, took on a lot of the court cases that were going on. Noah's an attorney, Clay is a CPA, Ryan is an attorney. Joe is just an amazing human being. So we are together as 5 partners, and we got through this together. And it's because of Jane's plan and our execution of that plan.
So given that that's where you're at today, where do you see yourself in the future?
Well, you can't be a fiduciary forever. It's hard work, and I see myself transitioning from an active trustee to being an educator. I think a lot of people are afraid to even think about getting an estate plan.
Why is that?
Well,
I mean, in your experience, you've talked to thousands of people.
yeah, the topics people assume you're going to talk about are money and death. Nobody wants to talk about death, and nobody thinks they have enough money. So that's one barrier. But another is it's hard to make some of these decisions. It's hard not to agree with your spouse about every single thing. And you might not. And what if? So I want to offer that estate planning is a what if exercise, and that you have the power, only you, as the decision maker of your life. You're the only one with the power to say, if this, then that. If I can't live in my home, then I want to live in a place like this. Or if I can't have my family with me, then I want a caregiver who's going to look after me and take care of me. Because death is not really what we're planning for. What we're planning for is being very much alive and not being the decision maker. And for some people, that's even scarier than talking about death. So what I can promise is that once you start on your estate planning journey, you have to know that it may take you a few months. You might have some hard decisions, but it's well worth doing.
And it's not just for somebody who has it's not about money. I want you to address that. Estate planning is for everyone.
It really is. I want you to think about everyone who drives a car and the expectation we have is that person's going to have car insurance. Is it because they're hoping to have an accident? No, of course not. That'd be ridiculous, right? But why do we have insurance? We have it because we can't predict everything. But we also have a preference. Some of us pay more for insurance. Some of us have the bare bones, but we all need car insurance, right? Especially in California. It's mandated in California. You can't register your car without it. Well, that's not true of living your life. You can live your life just fine and never have an estate plan. But your estate plan is your assurance that your wishes matter. And you have to get them in writing, and you have to express your preferences, or nobody knows what you want. And here's my challenge to you. If you're over 18 and you have a body, you need a plan. It is for everyone. Maybe you only have the clothes on your back. Maybe you're renting. Maybe you don't have family. But at some point, you might get sick. And at some point, you might need someone, even temporarily, to be able to make sure your bills get paid or seek public benefits for you. I don't know what kind of help you're going to need. But if you don't first believe that you're worthy of that help and you don't get those documents, then you end up in court. Somebody has to appoint somebody you've never heard of before to be that decision maker for you. And that's really messy and very expensive.
Speaking of that, there's people that are very famous and very wealthy and very well-to-do with lots of advisors around them 24/7 that don't always do it right.
Yeah.
And we wanted to bring up a couple of these cases in this first episode. And so let's talk a little bit about Jay Leno.
Oh, so one of the sweetest human beings. You know, reputationally, I hear all the time how nice Jay is. He's a nice guy. And he's been married to Mavis for decades and decades, right? And you'd think that a guy with that kind of money, that kind of celebrity, I mean, he was on The Tonight Show for years, right? And a classic car collection like that, and his own TV show about classic cars, that he would have an estate plan. But I don't think that he did. And you might think I'm psychic or something. I'm not. What ended up happening is Jay had to go to court because Mavis developed dementia. She couldn't make her own decisions. And it turns out that your spouse can't just make decisions for you. And so he had to go to court and petition the court, not only to be her conservator, and that means that that's the person who's making decisions on her behalf, but then also, Your Honor, could we also please have an estate plan for her? Because what if something happens to Jay? And so they finally do have an estate plan. I don't have the privy, right? I didn't get to read those documents, but I'm just letting you know I wouldn't know about this at all if he didn't have to go to court. It became a public matter because he didn't get an estate plan done privately when Mavis was able to make those decisions for herself.
So what must have happened assuming they had a trust, I'm assuming.
No,
we don't know.
No, it's my understanding that there wasn't one.
There wasn't even a trust of their assets?
Right. So imagining being on a trapeze without a net, and you might be worth $50 million. And if you die, then all of it goes to court. All of it becomes public. They have to figure out who you're blood related to, because that's probate is the court procedure that determines ownership after someone passes away. And Jay also, poor guy, he ended up burning his face really badly in an accident in his very own garage. Was Mavis able to take care of him? I don't know. Okay. He gets done with that, gets his new face, and he ends up in a motorcycle accident where he breaks his leg, and he has to go back to his face doctor and say, well, I hope you have another one in there. That's his joke, not mine. And so, this guy went through a lot of things, and then his wife couldn't be that person to look after him. So some realization came, something happened, and you could also wait till the crisis occurs, but guess what? Once the crisis happens and the crisis is making the decisions, not you. So if you want to be the one to make decisions for you and at least set down your preferences, again, I'm telling you, you can't predict the future. But let me give you an example from my plan. I have 2 boys. I love them. They love me. In my plan, they each get half of my cremains. That's what's left after a body gets cremated, right? So it's going to be split in half.
Here it is.
Because I can't choose which one, right? But the other part of it is they're not going to be my trustee. Never. Their brotherhood means more to me than my survival. And my instructions are that they get to come say goodbye to the body. My body can be kept alive for a few weeks, and the trust is instructed to actually pay for their expenses so they can come say goodbye to their mother, because that's for them. That's not about me. And that's how I feel about it. You might feel differently. You might feel that you don't care what actually happens to your body. You can let somebody else decide, but you have to put that preference down so that person knows they have the authority. And so everybody else in the picture knows they have the authority to make that decision. Otherwise, they could just say you gave them the authority. And you know how many people end up in court? And how many families get torn apart because somebody didn't say, oh, no, I meant for her to have the china set. No, I wanted him to have my car.
I'm going to transition to a topic that's in the news right now and get your feedback on it. And I'm going to read you the fact pattern and give us your thoughts on where you see issues arising.
I'm ready.
You ready?
I'm ready.
And again, it's public information, so I don't think nobody can say anything. Bill Belichick is who is an incredible former New England Patriots football coach who's won a lot of Super Bowls.
Yes.
He was married to Debbie from 1977 to 2006. Then he had a long-term girlfriend after that, divorced to Debbie through 2023. And now he's currently dating a woman who's either 23 or 24. I'm not exactly sure.
Wait, Bill's got to be 70-something.
He's 72 years old.
72, okay.
72. He has 3 children. His first child, his daughter, was born in 1984, so that makes her 40.
Okay.
He has 2 other children, boys, older than 24 years of age. I believe he has 4 grandchildren. His estimated net worth is $70 million, and his estimated income now as a color analyst for football, and I'm sure a lot of promotional material, is between 12 and 20 million. His recent financial action was to purchase a $4 million home on Nantucket for the ex-girlfriend, the long-term girlfriend who he never married.
Okay, so he bought her a house.
He bought her a house estimated at $4.8 million on the Nantucket Island.
Okay.
So there's the fact pattern. And again, for somebody in my space and your space, this is not an unusual fact. I mean, the 50-year spread between boyfriend and girlfriend may be a little extreme, even in our world.
I hope he's taking his heart pills.
I hope he... and whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we constantly are confronted by the second marriages and the situation with their stepchildren, children and grandchildren, and that's when things happen.
So I'm putting on the hat of the 40-year-old daughter, and I'm thinking, oh, not again. Or is he going to marry this one? Or what's going to happen? Because it just raises questions, right, about his plan. And he may not have a plan. He may just be enjoying dating. But he bought a big house, an expensive house for an ex-girlfriend. And I just wonder about the timing of that. Was that, oh, I'm breaking up with you, but here's a house so you don't sue me and
That's
we're
what
okay,
it
right?
appears.
And so she gets an almost $5 million house. Maybe new girlfriend's also hoping for that. For a guy who's making $1 million a month, maybe that's not so much and it's not a big deal. But I'm also thinking that a prenuptial makes sense, but it's not very romantic. But a lot can be solved with an estate plan. So if Bill went ahead and got an estate plan and said, this much goes to my kids no matter what. If I marry, this person will be limited to this much. Because there may also be residual payments. Even after he dies, he's going to be worth money. I mean, that stoic face. I'm just thinking about the licensing opportunities, right? Bill Belichick's face on a beach ball. So, there's that idea that it's not just you being affected by your choices. It's not just you, and there's so much money on this particular table that we're talking about that I hope he's listening to his advisors who are saying, Bill, you got to come in. We got to talk about this stuff, Bill, before you go out another day, before you take another trip, before you get on another airplane. Could we just make sure that you've got everything in line and you make sure that everything's going to be okay? And Bill, if you can hear me now, I'm super interested in what's in your plan. I'd love to talk to you about it. You don't have to say much. I'll ask really detailed questions, and you can just say yes or no.
Here's my question. Let's say nobody lives forever, so he will pass away at some point in time.
Yes.
Is the Nantucket house to the girlfriend? Does she have? Is that going to be transferred to her in her name? Is it currently transferred in her name now? Was it a gift? In terms of the estate plan?
Well, let's talk about taxable estates for a moment, because in our world now, you can have over $13 million, and that's exempt from estate taxes. But a gift like this is calculated against that $13 million. And by the way, those laws change. Those numbers change every year. So don't worry about the number I just gave you. Talk to your own attorney, please. But the idea is that a gift tax return needs to be done to deal with that gift. Now, does Bill still own the house? Well, then it's not a gift.
Yeah. Is he collecting rent?
Maybe. Is it under some kind of LLC or something else? And now there's new rules about corporate transparency that everyone has to have a FinCEN number if you have a corporation like that. And so I don't want to complicate things too much, but the idea is that just buying somebody a house is never just buying somebody a house. And has he done the same thing for his children? Has he done the same thing for his ex-wife? Is it possible that there's a life insurance policy with Bill Belichick's name as the insured on his life where his wife is the beneficiary? And so that's part of the homework of doing an estate plan, that you might have to actually show these things to your attorney, and that is a private experience. Unless you don't do it, and then all of this stuff, if Bill does not have an estate plan, guess what? All this is going to be made public. Like poor Prince. Prince didn't expect to die at just 48 years old. And oh my gosh, suddenly he had a lot of relatives, right? And the court procedures and everything, it's taken years to figure that out. And Prince, being the creative man that he was, also had a bunch of music he hadn't yet published. Who owns that? Well, he didn't decide who owns that. Now people he probably didn't even talk to have a stake in it just because they're somewhat blood related to him.
Are you able to stick around for a second episode where we're going to talk some case studies and really dive deeper into the what ifs?
Oh, that'd be so much fun. I would love to.
Because I'm just, we're just getting started in terms of the what ifs, because now with influencers making millions of dollars, how does that, let's say as a husband and wife influencer on TikTok, what happens if they get a divorce?
Yeah. And who owns the Instagram account?
Who owns the Instagram account?
Yeah.
So I think this is hitting home with a lot of people, and we're just getting our feet wet into the what ifs. And it doesn't have to be a $70 million estate. It can be
The dog.
It can be the dog.
It could be the dog. I mean, you cohabitate with someone for a while, and you adopt a dog, and you think things are going to go really great, and then one of you decides to leave. Who gets the dog?
Who owns the dog?
Yeah.
So Marguerite Lorenz, thank you for being here today. For those that are listening to this, again, I know you may be listening to it casually as you're preparing dinner or jogging, but please go into that Zen room or wherever you really concentrate and listen to this. This is vitally important material for your benefit. And we're going to have an episode 2 where we're going to go into even deeper what-if scenarios. And I guarantee you're going to have that aha moment going, oh, my God, that's my family. That's me. So stay tuned. Marguerite, thank you. See you real soon.
Thank you, Ron. I love you.
Love you, too. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to the Ron Greenwald Show. We really appreciate your participation. This topic is very important, so I encourage you to please subscribe and share on all the socials. And have a great day.